Okay, this week we're covering two chapters, chapter 10 and chapter 11. There's only 15 chapters. On the around the 10th week, we're going to start counseling. You need to get your characters finished and turned in so that we can people have an individual to counsel. This is the only way we can do it since we're not face to face, so you're going to have to do it. Just email it to me when you're finished, and I'll put it online. Right now, I've only got one, so that's going to be a pretty lonely time if only one person is doing any counseling. So let's go ahead and get started. Chapter 10 and chapter 11 are the two chapters we're going to cover today. If I can get this thing started. Okay, there we go. Developing a deeper understanding. In ordinary conversation, people often communicate in verbal shorthand, only discussing topics in a superficial way. We rarely ask for more information. We assume that people use words the same way that we do, and that's not always true, but then again, that's the way people are. One of the reasons people like to talk to me is because I look for more information. So when they start telling me their story, I always ask them for more information. So it's easy for me to get people to talk. Sometimes I can do it without even thinking, which means I'm stuck someplace listening to somebody's story, which is fine, I just attended my 50th college reunion, and I probably had more and longer conversations than just about everybody there. It is important for practitioners to listen for gaps in information, notice points and words that are not clear, ask about how conclusions are reached. A lot of times people will skip over the bad parts and just talk about the good parts. These are the words that they don't want you to understand, or maybe they're using jargon. These are the points that you need to hit because these are the ones that are causing them uh, distress. Developing deeper understanding. I understand that you are feeling depressed. What is depression like for you? What does it feel like for you? I hear you are concerned about your children's behavior. Can you give me some examples? Yes, they stick their tongue out all the time. I notice that several people in the group are looking at the floor. Will one of you share what you are feeling? When behaviors, feelings, experiences, and the nature of the problem, challenge, or situations are clear, then changes can be more easily made. I think that should be our situation. I don't know. The meaning of words and body language can be explored. The basis of conclusions can be enlightening. Using questions to expand and clarify is important in families and in groups. You said your mom doesn't like you. Will you tell me what makes you think that? I don't think others care about finishing what we started. Will you tell me what is happening that makes you think that? That's what somebody else said. And then he says, well, why in the world did you say that? I know my husband doesn't love me. Will you give me some examples of this behavior that leads you to feel that way? He's always holding hands with somebody else. A client must be willing to explore more deeply. A client must feel comfortable and safe. It can be useful for the practitioner to ask about the client's hesitancy to share. But the practitioner should not push clients to share. Gaining further information may help in establishing a trusting relationship. And this is a bit of a trick. You need them to share, but you can't push them. The more you push them, the more defensive they become, and the more locked down they will become. So one of the things that you need to do is to um, be able to gain understanding. If you've ever seen the movie Good Will Hunting, he didn't want to delve into what was going on with Will until Will was ready to disclose that information. So they sat there without saying anything for several different sessions, and then finally Will started talking when he wanted to. But what Will had experienced before with counselors was that they were always pushing. And of course, that made it easy for him to push back. Silence may be useful in encouraging clients to explore further. Silence allows time for processing. This is what was going on with Will and Robin Williams' character in Good Will Hunting. Feelings may be experienced more deeply during silent periods. The more intense the feelings, the more silent time may be needed to experience them. Some people need more silent time to process their thoughts and feelings. Some people need quiet time to think. Silence should be used purposefully. Observe your client's reaction to silence. Some may feel rejected, some may just feel uncomfortable. Each situation and each client seems to be thoughtfully considered. Now, I know this isn't something that happens in your culture, but in the white culture, they don't like silence. This is a generality, of course, but silence is not something that they appreciate. So watching how they react to silence is it can be very edifying if you're counseling somebody who is white. Um, so I've got something going on over. Okay. So this is something you need to think about. If you're dealing with somebody that you're not exactly sure uh, what culture they adhere to, uh, put some silence in there and see what happens. If it's somebody who's white, they'll probably try to fill it with some kind of noise, something. Tapping. It could be just noise, or it could be them saying something that has nothing to do with what you're talking about. Sorry, my dog started barking. To develop deeper understanding of clients besides focusing on their challenges, you need to focus on their strengths, their resources, and their positive factors. And this isn't always easy because usually someone is coming in not because they have strengths, resources, and positive factors, but because they have a problem. Therefore, they want to focus on the problem. They want to focus on their weaknesses. They want to focus on their deficits. But one of the things you have to do is be able to identify their strengths, their resources, and their positive factors. Many clients may want their challenges to be understood before they move on to their strengths. And this is what I was just talking about. They'll want you to deal with their deficits. Sorry. I was drinking some apple cider. We just pressed this last night. Pretty good stuff. By focusing on the client's strengths, resources, and other positive factors, the practitioner can help clients feel hopeful, positive, and more able to cope. Highlighting what clients have already achieved shows that the practitioner understands and supports the efforts that they have made up to that point. Questions helpful in exploring strengths and positive factors. What do you do well? What do you like about yourself? What does your family do that is fun? They dye our hair with eggs. Looks like he's got eggs on top of his head. That's not a natural color. What are some good things about this organization? Tell me about friends who have helped you in the past. What have you done that you are proud of? Empowerment is achieved when clients know that they have the knowledge, skills, competencies, and resources to make decisions, solve problems, and achieve goals. As people use their strengths and resources to face and deal with problems and challenges, they gain confidence. Tell me about something you completed that seemed difficult, like climbing a mountain. What skills have helped you solve previous challenges? How have you resolved previous challenges? After reflecting the client's strengths, the practitioner can invite the client to catalog other instances when they have actively participated in solving problems. This will enhance their confidence and sense of empowerment. Tell me about something you completed that seemed difficult. Of the things you have already done to resolve this problem, tell me about what has worked well, even for a brief period of time. What are some of the things you learned from working with past challenges? What skills helped you solve past challenges? How have you resolved previous challenges? Respect can be demonstrated, and respect is one of the most important things about being a counselor. You need to respect the people that you're dealing with. If you have no respect for them, if you're in this to find people who are worse off than you, that you don't really like very much, you're in the wrong profession. This is not for you. If you can't respect all of your clients, no matter who they are, no matter what has happened to them, I was talking to an individual yesterday, and he was complaining about one of his neighbors. One of his neighbors is has been on disability all of his life, and he seems to get things. People give him things because, well, he's supposed to be disabled. According to this guy, nobody's exactly sure what his disability is. But if you were counseling this individual, despite the fact that he's never worked a day in his life, could you possibly respect him? And of course, if you can answer yes to that question, then you respect the people that you're dealing with. Doesn't matter what they look like. It doesn't matter what kind of clothes they have. It doesn't matter what they drive. It doesn't matter what they smell like. And as a counselor, that's one of the things you're going to notice. I've been reading about the Gabby Petito situation. I guess they found her body a couple days ago. Maybe it was yesterday. And now they're trying to figure out where the boyfriend is. But one of the things that one of the pieces of information that came out about the boyfriend is that he got into a car with a couple. He was hitchhiking, and they picked him up, and they were going to take him someplace, and they kept saying he didn't smell like. Theoretically, he told them that he'd been out camping by himself for about 3 or 4 days. Now, the reality is, if you don't wash for 3 or 4 days, you've got a smell about you, unless you've just been sitting there and not doing anything. Of course, sweat accumulates, and after a couple days, it has an odor about it. Mainly because the sweat mixes with bacteria, and then you get an interesting odor. And they said he didn't have an odor about him. He didn't have a smell, which told them that he had bathed recently, and he had told them that he'd been out in the wilderness for 3 or 4 days. So this was their proof, or at least their understanding, that potentially he was lying to them. And of course, it was right on the way from where they found Miss Petito's body, her murdered body. Respect can be so you need to respect your clients, no matter who they are, no matter what they are, no matter what negatives they have going for them. You still need to respect them. Respect can be demonstrated by expressing understanding and validating the client's story, by showing interest in the client's thoughts and feelings, wants, needs, and goals, by creating and maintaining a collaborative environment, by asking about strengths, resources, potential, and capacities, and by identifying their strengths. With all the trained professionals in this group, I am confident that we can find a way to resolve this. You've tried to solve this problem. Will you tell me about other things you have considered but haven't used yet? You seem quite angry about your boss, how your boss has been behaving. It must be a tough place to work. How do you think I might help you? When you resolve this problem, what are some things that will be different in your family? You have told me about the many ways you have worked on this challenge. Who else in the agency might be willing to work with us to resolve the problem? As I understand it, you have done a lot of thinking about the problems this organization is facing. You have talked to a number of people about your understanding of the problem and have decided to commit time and energy to resolving this problem. You have taken some important steps in problem solving. And that is the end of chapter 10. Now we're going to start on chapter 11. I need to reiterate the fact that you need to get your character history in. All you need to do is fill out that one sheet. You get points for it, 50 points. So, and I hope I remember to give them to you. If I don't, you can always email me and I'll take care of it. It's kind of a long chapter, but we need to get through it. So don't forget your character history. If anybody's having problems with this, I have office hours every day, Monday through Thursday. Monday and Wednesday are afternoon hours, 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock, and Tuesday and Thursday are morning hours, 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock. So if you need to talk to me about it, you can come online. It's the address. The Zoom address is on the website. Or you can email me and I'll see what I can do to help you. Okay, chapter 11. Readiness and motivation. Starting with research by Prochaska in 1999, researchers have identified 5 stages of readiness to change using smoking cessation, weight reduction, and sobriety studies. So this is a meta-analysis that they did, and they came up with these 5 stages of readiness to change. If you've ever tried to talk anybody out of being an alcoholic or out of that they need to stop smoking, you know that a lot of times you're just speaking into a strong wind, and they don't want to listen to you. The first one is pre-contemplation. In pre-contemplation stage, the individual denies or lacks understanding of his problem behavior. Since the individual does not recognize their problem, they do not see the need for change. They may blame their problem on others. They may only agree to see a practitioner because someone else has suggested or required it, and usually it has to do with the law. A person who abuses substances but, despite many arrests for driving under the influence, does not consider themselves to have a problem that needs to be addressed. They are in the pre-contemplation stage. A gang that lives in a community with high levels of violence who believe they can continue perpetrating violence and not be personally affected, they are in the pre-contemplation stage. A husband who comes along to counseling because his wife thinks they have problems but doesn't see any problems himself, he's in the pre-contemplation stage. A wife who wants to enter marriage and comes to counseling to ease her guilt, maybe she is going to counseling in order to tell herself, I did everything I could to save the marriage, I even went to counseling. She's in the pre-contemplation stage. A person who has had a serious health crisis and has been told to change their eating habits but states, I've always eaten this way and I am not going to change now, he's in the pre-contemplation stage. A practitioner should focus on raising clients' awareness of the urgency of the issues and the pain or fear involved. You can't change them. All you can do is hold a mirror up to them and show them that maybe you need to change, because if you don't, something's going to happen. People think that they're going to live forever. People think that they are always going to be slender, that they're always going to be beautiful, and that nothing will ever change. The reality is we all evolve and we all change over time. Maybe your time won't come like everyone else's, because your time will be limited due to the fact that you are damaging yourself. This is, like I said, I just came back from my 50th reunion. About a third of the class has died already. And of all the African Americans in my college class, 6 out of 8 have already died. And about a third of the class is no longer with us. Another third of the class was fairly infirm and they couldn't make it. Now, we graduated from college 50 years ago, so it's not like we're all spring chickens. We're all in our 70s someplace, in our early 70s, or maybe even our middle 70s. And some people, that's all the time that they have. But a lot of people, they do things like drink and they smoke, um, which are fairly destructive. Some people use drugs. I had one friend from college who died about 20 years ago, who was a heavy cocaine snorter, and because that's the lifestyle that he was in. Eventually, he decided to clean himself up. Kept getting married. He was fairly wealthy because he owned technology stores. Uh, Technology retail stores. And of course, every time a new technology came out, I mean, if you think about over the last 50 years, the technology, I mean, he started out with 8-track players, and then they went to cassettes, and then they went to CDs, and now they're into jump drives and whatnot. All of that changed, and he was on the cusp of all that. So he made money hand over fist. The lifestyle was to be cool and to get drunk all the time or stay stoned all the time. Married 3 times. Eventually, he decided to clean himself up. That he didn't like himself anymore. That he wanted to do something for people instead of to people by ripping them off at his store. So he sold his store, went to law school, paid his way through law school, and became a prosecuting attorney. And he died about 20 years ago from a heart attack that was probably caused by the fact that, because of all the damage that he did to himself by snorting all that cocaine. It's the way the world works, okay? You hurt yourself, then you're going to pay for it. Sometime you're going to pay for it. Like I told you last week, I think I told you guys this. Like I told you last week, I'm probably in better shape than anybody else at the reunion. I am bragging, that is true, and my genetics are pretty good. But the reality is that there's a lot of people that that hurt themselves, and of course, some people have bad genetics. I hold a record at Wabash. It's a relay record, and the fastest runner on our relay died only about 6 months ago from Parkinson's disease. That's an autoimmune disease. It's genetic. There's nothing anybody can do about it. But he died about 6 months ago. So here there's only 2 of us left. 2 of the people on the relay team have already died, and another individual and myself are the only 2 people. And we're both 71 years old, by the way. I'll be 72 in October. So, counselor, if you continue drinking, what do you think your life will be like in 5 years? I apologize for the picture. It's a bit obscene, but the reality is you got to think about this stuff. Counselor, I have worked with people who have changed their eating habits and become healthier. A person in the pre-contemplation stage isn't interested in setting goals. The target must be to get the client to think about changing their lives and whether it will improve their lives. The next stage is the contemplation stage. It's the second stage. The individual in this stage weighs the pros and cons in making a change, but they're not quite ready to move ahead with making a change. They're in the contemplation stage. They're thinking about it. They're trying to rationalize why they do what they do. They know it's hurting them, but they're trying to come up with an excuse not to have to change. Practitioners can discuss the advantages and disadvantages of changing. It is helpful to identify barriers or challenges to making changes. The practitioner can propose small steps toward considering a change. I had a good friend up in Montana who, when I saw him, he was clean and sober and had been clean and sober for 11 years. This guy had gone to therapy 48 times. They had sent him to dry out and to get clean 48 times, and it took a spiritual awakening before he changed, and he became a healer. As curious as that is, before that he was the police chief, and he was mean. He was really mean. As a healer, he was a really nice guy, and I only knew him as a healer. So he was. He was in the contemplation stage forever, for 48 years or whatever. Practitioner, as you think about giving up marijuana, what do you consider would be the advantages and disadvantages? Oh, I just read an article about they've got a new problem. It's hyperemesis. Hyper means too much, and emesis means vomiting. It's cannabis hyperemesis. So what they've discovered is there are a number of people that, if they're chronic and heavy marijuana smokers, sometimes they will develop this hyperemesis where if they smoke marijuana, they just vomit, and they won't stop vomiting until their stomach is empty, until they've gotten some of it out of their system. And this seems to be a new and not that uncommon problem. They first started seeing it in Australia and New Zealand. The Canadians have talked about it because they've had legalized marijuana up there. But now we're starting to see it in the United States, in Colorado and Washington, all the states that have legalized marijuana. Really kind of interesting. The reality is that if you have diarrhea for an extended length of time, or if you vomit for an extended length of time, it dehydrates you, and it can be dangerous if you're not really careful. And that's one of the reasons why if somebody goes into the hospital with diarrhea, they'll start an IV almost right away to replace the liquid. And the same thing happens with vomiting, of course. Client, I am not ready to make any changes right now. Client, I have wondered if some of the problems on this team are because I am kind of dominating, but on the other hand, I think we get more accomplished because I am pushy. Client, my boss thinks I should get over my fear of making speeches, but I'm just not sure if it is something I can do. Client, I keep getting sent to the principal's office for fighting, and then I can't play in the next football game. I don't like getting in trouble, but I have to stand up for myself. Client, we have discussed forming a committee to address the problems in this organization, but I wonder if we would really accomplish anything. This is the contemplation stage. Practitioners can help clients identify barriers or challenges to making changes, and also strengths that will be helpful if they decide to change. Practitioners might ask if there are small steps that they might consider that may lead to a greater willingness to change in the near future. The third stage of readiness for change is preparation. So we've had pre-contemplation stage where they've thought about it, but they're not ready to change. The contemplation stage where they have thought about it more and maybe they're ready to change, but they haven't done anything about it yet. And the third stage, of course, is the preparation stage. The clients are ready to change and are looking for information. They may have already made some changes and are wanting to make more progress. They may have made some small steps and are ready to move forward, making goals. Generally, people need to be at this stage before a major change will be possible. So if you catch a client in the pre-contemplation or the contemplation stage, the probability of getting them to change is not very high. But if you can catch them in the preparation stage, and I can tell you, it would be great if everybody came in to see a counselor when they were in the preparation stage. But the reality is you're probably going to have to talk them into it. In other words, they're in the pre-contemplation or the contemplation stage, especially if they have been assigned to come in to see you by the courts. They don't think there's a problem. They don't recognize that this is a problem, and the only thing that you can do is try to convince them. But in the preparation stage, they've already decided what needs to happen, or that some change needs to happen. All they need is direction. The fourth stage is the action stage. Clients are ready to take specific steps and may need little or no support from the practitioner. If the practitioner assumes that the clients are at this stage and yet they are still in a previous stage, the practitioner will likely feel frustrated. Clients may feel that they should be ready to take steps they are not yet ready to take. Only about a third of clients come to practitioners at this stage, and that would be great if they would all come in at the preparation or the action stage, but the reality is they don't. An obese client, when faced with life-threatening health issues, joins Weight Watchers, learns to follow the program, and loses a significant amount of weight. A parent whose children have been removed from the home because the parent used harsh, abusive means of discipline says that they will learn about ways of discipline, willingly goes to a parenting class, and talks with the practitioner about ways to use what they have learned. A child realizes that they will not be able to play on a team without earning passing grades and starts attending an after-school tutoring class in order to bring up their grades. This happened to us when I was in college. We had a sprinter who was really fast, but he couldn't pass his classes. And of course, you can't run unless you can pass your classes, especially at a Division III school at a small college. So we sent him to a tutor, and he decided that everything else is more important than being able to run, I guess. And he dropped out of school. We lost track of him. He's gone. Action: the task group establishes a clear goal, identifies steps to achieve their goal, and talks with a practitioner about ways to work together most effectively. Maintenance is the last stage. The pull to return to old behaviors is extremely strong. This is something that you need to remember. Clients need to develop ways to cope with temptations and to reward day-to-day successes. And of course, take alcoholics for example. Alcoholics, of course, they are tempted every day. My friend who I was talking about, the healer that I was talking about, who had gone to treatment 48 times, he said that he got up every morning and had to tell himself, I am not going to drink today. And even though he had been clean and sober for 11 years, this was his maintenance technique. Another individual a good friend of mine from Montana had been an alcoholic all of his life, and then he decided to stop. He'd been clean and so when I was up there, he'd been clean and sober for 17 years, and he said exactly the same thing. Every day I have to get up and say, I will not drink today. The craving was that strong, and it was just as strong the day he stopped as it was in the 17th year. So it's something that you have to contemplate this every day. The problem is that like if you've ever seen the movie 28 Days, she wants to stay sober, and her boyfriend wants her to be the fun party person that she was before, and she has to get away from him in order to stay sober. And because there's always pressure on these individuals. Now the problem is that there are individuals that don't like them so much as sober people. They like them a lot more as drunks. So you got to stay away from those people. They will tempt you. They're not the devil, but they're doing the devil's work, I guess. It is helpful to explore how past successes have been maintained and develop ways to maintain current changes. It must be remembered that this stage can be difficult. The old behavior was maintained before because it was rewarding or comfortable. Clients need to learn to cope with old behaviors and temptations for the long haul. Do I eat the apple or do I eat the piece of rich chocolate cake? I was fat before. Maybe should go with the apple. An organization develops more effective ways of problem solving and plans regular meetings so potential problems can be addressed before they become bigger issues. An individual learns to stop procrastinating on projects and makes plans to check in with someone who will provide honest feedback about whether the problem seems to be reappearing. A person who has had serious problems with alcohol abuse continues to be involved with AA. And this is My friend who had been clean and sober for 17 years, he ran an AA group, and he knew that would be very easy for him to falter. So he would run this AA group out of the Methodist basement of the Methodist church in a town really close to the reservation. A person has lost weight with the help of Weight Watchers and continues to attend meetings at least once a month. Relapse and termination. Relapse is common, and preparation for it needs to be a part of the process. Relapse is so common when change has occurred that some practitioners add it as a stage of change. When relapse occurs, clients may return to any of the previous stages. It is the job of the practitioner to determine which stage the client is in. Termination is the point at which there is no temptation to return to old behavior. And of course, the relapse is one of the things that you have to plan for. I understand that Robin Williams had been a cocaine addict for much of the early part of his life. Decided to change, and that's when he became a serious actor. He became a serious actor, won Academy Awards. Before he committed suicide, he went back. He relapsed, and he had to go back to treatment. It was out of treatment that he committed suicide. I'm not saying finally committed suicide. That's not correct. Assessing stages of change. Do you currently have a problem with something? If yes, then the client is in the contemplation, preparation, or action stage. If no, the client is in pre-contemplation stage. Do you intend to deal with the problem? If the answer is someday, then the client is in the contemplation stage. If the answer is in the next few weeks or a specific date, then they are in the preparation stage. If they say right now, then they are in the action stage. If they say never, then they are in the pre-contemplation stage. Do you intend to deal with the problem? If the answer to the question is no, then you have to ask them, what leads you to say that? If the answer is because it is not a problem, the client is in the pre-contemplation stage. If the client responds because I have already dealt with the problem, the client is in the maintenance stage. Another theory that can be used to assess readiness or the ability to make changes is a social cognitive theory. Social cognitive therapy is really popular right now. So this is something that this is a technique that we can use. This is Albert Bandura, what he graduated from with his PhD. This theory was developed by Albert Bandura and was originally called the social learning theory, but now it's called the social cognitive theory. This theory considers the impact of the following factors as to readiness for change. What environment do they live in? Are there any personal is there a personal situation that is causing the problem? Is there a behavioral problem? Personal factors include everything: physical makeup, brain structure, cognitive capacity, beliefs, self-concept, goals, and emotions. Personal factors deal with how you interact with others. Are you focused more inward on yourself, or are you focused more outward on others? Research has shown that behavior affects brain structure, and that is according to work by Mathiak and Weber in 2006. Long-haul truck drivers have different brain structures than theoretical physicists. Why? Because they do different things. They think in different ways. Behavior also affects physical makeup, as someone who is sedentary will look different from a marathoner. And of course, this is somebody who takes care of themselves, and this is the same fellow when he doesn't. When assessing a person's readiness or ability to make changes from the point of view of the social cognitive theory, several dimensions are considered. Does the environment support or encourage change behavior? This is really important. A lot of times people will come in by themselves. We convince them that they need to change, but it is the environment that is causing their problem. Can Will the environment support the changed behavior? It's extremely important. A lot of times, let's take an example. You've got a young lady who has low self-esteem. She's being abused by her husband. She comes in and asks you for help. So you raise her self-esteem, but you send her back to the same environment where she's abused by her husband. Um, does the environment support the changed behavior? And the answer in this case is no. It's going to be a cyclical situation. Does the person think that they have the capacity to make the change? And sometimes they don't. Sometimes they can't change. Does the client believe that there is something to be gained from making the change rather than maintaining the current behavior? And of course, if you watch the movie 28 Days, it took her a lot more than 28 days to decide that she needed to change, that her behavior was not appropriate. And of course, she went back to the same environment. She had the same boyfriend, and the boyfriend always wanted to go to a bar because they were so much fun at a bar. And that is the environment that she went back to. So she needed to change that environment to allow the change in her behavior. The practitioner must take into account all factors that influence the client, family, group, or organization. Do they feel compelled to solve the problem? The amount of discomfort created by the problem impacts the motivation. Environmental factors can influence motivation as well. A lot of times the problem has to do with the environment that you're in. If you have friends that have to go out and drink every weekend, uh, then uh, then stopping drinking is not going to be easy for you. You'll have to change your environment. In other words, you'll have to get new friends or convince your friends to do something else. The relationship of the client and the practitioner influence motivation. Positive regard can increase motivation, as can the practitioner's genuineness, focus on the issues, and regular feedback. Problems in the relationship must be dealt with non-defensively by both parties, but especially the practitioner. It is important for the practitioner to regularly ask for feedback from the client to ensure that the progress he or she perceives is actual and not illusional. Assessing motivation to change, discounting is a cognitive distortion that allows clients to deny or minimize existence of the problem. It's not important. My drinking isn't a problem. Hey, I've been smoking since I was 7 years old, and it's never been a problem before. Why should it be a problem in the future? There's four levels of discounting: thinking there is no problem, thinking the problem is not significant but present, thinking that the problem does not have a solution, which still blocks motivation, of course, and thinking that others have changed the problem, but that he or she cannot do it. They could be in the contemplation stage if they have this idea. An individual who thinks being 50 pounds overweight is not a problem. A family that believes disciplining children by hitting them with a belt isn't a problem. A task group that thinks the fact that they haven't started working on an assignment that is due in a few days is not a problem. A business that thinks the fact that their product isn't completely safe is not a problem. The guy that is 50 pounds overweight accepts it as a problem, but not a serious one. This is not significant. The abusive belt-hitting family might not worry about their discipline technique because 1, they never do it in public, 2, it doesn't happen that often, and 3, this must be the right way to discipline because their family has always done it this way and going back 5 generations. The task group says that getting started late is a problem, but not a serious one because students work on things at the last minute all the time and they still get them done because they are so brilliant. The business admits that their product isn't completely safe, but since most people are not negatively affected by it, it isn't really important to change it. Being 50 pounds overweight is a serious problem. This is thinking that the problem does not have a solution. Being 50 pounds overweight is a serious problem, but everyone in the family is overweight, and there is nothing that can be done about it. Disciplining children by hitting them with a belt may be considered a serious problem by some blue noses in the community, but it is the only effective way to make their children behave. We wanted to get a good grade on this project and knew that starting late may mean that it won't be possible, but everyone was too busy. We just couldn't do it any other way. The business made a statement that selling a product that is unsafe, thinking that the problem is not, it doesn't have a solution. The business made a statement that selling a product that is unsafe is a risk, but it is a profitable product and they don't know any way to improve the safety. Thinking that others have changed the problem, but they cannot do it. I'm concerned about being overweight, and I know that my friend lost weight recently, but losing weight isn't something I can do. We haven't been able to discipline our children except by hitting them, but our neighbors took a parenting course and learned several new ways to discipline their children. For this assignment, we weren't able to start working until right before the project was due, but some of the other groups in class somehow found enough time to work together before the project was due, and they got better grades than we did. We haven't found any way to be profitable except by continuing to sell an unsafe product, but there are other similar companies who have found alternative, safe, and profitable products. Discounting the practitioner's job is to get the client to accept the problem exists, the problem is serious, the problem is solvable by the client. Most people are uncomfortable with change, so getting past discounting may take time. People do not like to change. There are some people that never want to change. They don't want to change anything. Some people are willing to change, but other people, you got to do it with a club. Strength, capacity, resources have a significant effect on motivation. Clients who have many personal strengths, good social support, and adequate resources tend to be motivated. Resilience is an important strength that some people have and some people don't. The level of stress and demands reduces or enhances motivation. Clients who have faced extensive stress recently and have high stress currently have depleted their resources and may have difficulty dealing with new stress. Experience teaches the client that they have the ability to affect change. Experience leads to self-efficacy, which leads to hope. Another element of hope is an internal locus of control. They believe that their behavior will produce the desired changes. I used to do one of the most difficult things in medicine. Microsurgery is one of the most difficult things in medicine, but being able to draw somebody's blood is not the easiest thing in the world. And some people can do it and some people can't do it. I learned this in training. Some people, they would get all scared and they would just duck it if they had to draw blood later on. Now me, I'm really steady, and so it's something that I know that I can do. So if I ever had a challenge, a lot of times people would go and they would try to draw blood from somebody, and they would come down, and somebody had to go up and get the blood because that was the order. So I would go up and do it, and I would always get the blood. And the reason is because I had so much confidence in myself. I had been successful over and over and over again, and I felt like I could get blood from anybody, which isn't true. I mean, certainly it's not true. I usually got blood. I never failed to get blood. Sometimes it took more than one stick, but I always got blood. So what does that mean? What that means is that sometimes you if you have confidence in yourself, then you probably can do it. Not everybody has the same ideas, the same locus of control. People with external locus of control believe that control is external and they have no power to influence it. Thus, anything that they do has no connection to the outcome. There is no way that they can fix themselves. These are people with external locus of control. Now, personally, I have an internal locus of control. So I feel like I can do anything and I have control over my own self. Practitioners bring their previous experience, education, and beliefs about change to any meeting with clients. When change is not as quick or easy as clients want, practitioners provide support and encouragement that change is possible. Another element of hope is the placebo effect. Research on counseling and medicine consistently shows that when people believe that something will help them, it often is helpful. And using the placebo effect is okay. It's fine as long as you can convince them that they can do it. If they're convinced they can't do it, then they can't possibly change anything. But if you can convince them that they can, despite the fact that it may be the placebo effect, that's fine. You know, the placebo effect is actually something. I mean, it's neurotransmitters in your brain that heal, neurotransmitters that take away the pain. It's neurotransmitters that make you feel positive. And that's really all the placebo effect is. And there is actually a chemical aspect to the placebo effect. So if you can get the placebo effect working, more power to you. That's great. That's fantastic. And you're going to be able to get things done. That is the end of the chapter. Don't forget, you need to get your histories in so that I can put them online and you guys can prepare for doing counseling. That was chapter 11. I think there's 15 chapters in the book. So over the next couple of weeks, this is the seventh week. Over the next 3 weeks, we will be finishing all of the lectures, and then you can start counseling. Once you start counseling, once I'm done with the lectures, no more discussions. The way that you're going to be graded is by how much counseling you get done, whether your counseling is successful and what. Well, actually, I'm not going to grade you on success or failure. I'm going to grade you on whether you do it or not. You need to practice. You need to find out if you can do it. That's really the only way to tell you whether this is something that you need to do in the future. So that's what we'll be doing in the future. You've got a paper to write about the problem that your character has. That's going to be some of the points. Wait a minute. I think I can go. Well, I'll have to go online. That's okay. We'll talk about it next time, how you pass this class. But one of the things you have to do is do 10 counseling sessions with your cohorts in the class. Remember, you've got to respect your client, and even if you don't like people, that doesn't mean anything to me anyway, because I like everybody. I respect everybody. So that's one of the things that you need to do. Okay, so get your histories in, and so that we can start counseling by the 10th week. And like I said, this is the seventh week, so the 8th, 9th, and 10th week. There's 4 more chapters and 3 more weeks. So, oh golly. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Okay. Anyway, okay, I'll talk to you guys next week.